The shove that pushed me out from under my own roof wasn't a shout, but a line recited as cold as a grocery list. "You don't mean anything in this house anymore, Dad." No anger, no noise, just a full stop. The living room congealed, leaving only the refrigerator's hum at the end of the hall. My daughter-in-law sat cross-legged on the sofa, a courteous smile barely curled at the corner of her mouth. The light threw a harsh stripe across the floorboards I once sanded by hand. I didn't argue or beg, I simply stood there, fingers trembling lightly on the leather strap of my old watch. In that silence I understood something colder than rejection. They had rehearsed. But there was one thing they didn't know. Those who think they hold all the power are the ones who end up paying the price. And as if to cap the perfect prelude, my daughter-in-law tilted her head, her voice sweet as an advertisement. "Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from." Tick, tock. The second hand taps against my wrist, each beat a countdown. Harsh light rakes across the floorboards I once sanded by hand. A figure cuts through the map of Lake Michigan on the wall. The glass frame gives a faint tremor. The smell of cold coffee mixes with the bite of manila paper, thickening the air. Linus twists her ring, sets a porcelain cup down too lightly, then shifts to stand off-center in the doorway, locking the passage like a latch. Her voice is smooth, unhesitating, gliding like a blade through cold butter. "Kane, let's keep this tidy. Please cooperate so everything goes smoothly." I turn my head. Just a little. Enough to register the message. Hard as steel. "You've never liked noise, especially when the paperwork can speak for you," I say. Even to my ears, my voice sounds smaller. Harry won't look at me. His fingers drum the table's edge. He swallows dry. His eyes stick to the map's glass where his own face reflects. His jaw tightens. "Dad, stick to the point." The plan's agreed. On the coffee table, a thin manila folder, half hidden under 3 publications, Dwell, an old Cabela's catalog, and a glossy brochure for a Palm Springs resort. The folder's edge is frayed. A yellow post-it juts out, Notary 7:00 p.m. Beneath it, black ink bites into the page, dark as a bruise. Kane. I track that word the way you watch a fox slip out at the tree line, natural, inevitable, already calculated. The floorboards give a small groan as Linus slides half a step, still blocking the way. "Please cooperate," she says, a cool smile on her lips. My thumb strokes the leather watch strap. I inhale slowly, lift my head just enough not to bow. The second hand keeps tapping. "What's the situation?" I ask, almost gently, then let the pause fall between 2 ticks. Specifically, which option currently has my name on it? "It's time," Harry says, fingers drumming the table's edge. "Mom's gone. You're moving in. We need to rearrange things so you get the proper support." "Don't call it a facility." Linus cuts in, twisting her ring, setting a porcelain cup down too lightly, then shifting to stand off-center in the doorway like a latch. "It's a managed community activity schedule, game nights, a chef-run kitchen. You'll have a standard private room." Tick, tock. The second hand taps steadily against my wrist, each beat a countdown. The leather strap is worn, the brass buckle dulled. On the back, my father's initials still ghost through. Frames on the wall tremble a hair. A floorboard murmurs as someone shifts. The smell of oil and wood from the toolkit mixes with the plastic bite of a manila folder. The house suddenly smells like procedure. "Is this a decision you two made together?" I ask. Harry gives a single nod. The light etches new lines into his face, lines that weren't there when he was 12, asking me if the Tigers would make the playoffs, or 20 calling to brag he'd landed that internship in Seattle. "Some creases are inherited. Some you draw yourself. And my room, what happens to it? My tools, do they stay in place?" "We've prepped," Linus answers quickly. "There are labeled shelves in the garage. Harry already cleared them." She tilts her head toward him, as if I'm not there. "Honey, call Dominic about the truck." "What truck?" I ask. "The Chevrolet Silverado 1500, she says smoothly. "That size doesn't really suit you anymore. Dominic will buy it off you. You'll still get a little money." "My truck," I say, slow. Who exactly is Dominic paying? Harry looks away, fixing on the lake map on the wall. His jaw tightens in the glass's reflection. Dad, stay on task. The plan is set. The words no longer meaningful don't cut. They sink. They tilt the floor beneath my feet by half a degree. On the coffee table lies a thin manila folder, half hidden under 3 magazines. Dwell, an old Cabela's catalog, and a glossy brochure for a Palm Springs resort. The folder's edge is frayed. A yellow post-it juts out. Notary, 8 o'clock in the evening. Black ink has bitten into the paper beside my name, Kane, dark as a bruise. I steady my hand, thumb stroking the watch strap. Who signs for this support, and from which account are the costs drawn? I breathe in slowly, lift my head just enough not to be bowing. Let's keep this tidy, Kane, Linus says, smile thin. We need your cooperation so everything goes smoothly. I look at the skewed post-it, notice the green digits of the kitchen clock washing across the folder's edge. 8 o'clock blinks like a countdown light, everything tidy, efficient. They've scheduled a time to notarize my absence. Don't stamp everything tonight, I said. Linus smiled a smile that didn't reach her eyes. The refrigerator purred in the distance. The second hand ticked beneath the skin of my wrist. She twisted her ring, flicked her chin at my knee, then glanced at the Kane leaning by the bookcase. We've reserved a Monday intake slot, Kane, just a few strokes of the pen. What papers? I asked, my voice as even as the second hand. Linus slid out the manila folder rustle. The smell of plastic cover, fresh ink, and a faint antiseptic washed over, drowning out the house's own scent. The desk lamp cast a harsh band across the paper's edge, catching squarely on the signature box. In the corner, a crooked post-it read, Notary, 8 o'clock in the evening. From the kitchen, the blue 8 o'clock glowed onto the stack like a countdown clock. Durable power of attorney, medical authority. Linus tapped her pen, click on the checked box. So we can act quickly if when you need help. She cut a glance at Harry. And a little paperwork cleanup on the house, since you co-signed the refinance last year. Simplify title so we can handle bills and accounts without your signature. Harry wouldn't meet my eyes. His finger drummed on the table's edge, in time with the tick-tock. I didn't sit. My thumb stroked the strap of the old watch, the brass clasp worn smooth, my father's initials still faint on the back. Who's being granted the power, one of you, or both? When I need help, who defines when? Simplify means whose name gets taken off? Linus inched the folder forward, blocking part of my view, her voice slick as a knife through cold butter. Just procedure, Kane. Sign here. I looked down at the boxes already checked. Mail management. Auto-debit elder care, emergency consent, and another edge peeking out. Quitclaim deed relinquishment of interest. It didn't shout. It lay there like a trap. Tonight, I said, letting the pause fall exactly on the click of the second hand. We don't sign, we read, line by line. Across the table, Linus thumped the pen tip right on the signature box. The second hand clicked back in reply. The air thickened with fresh ink and the refrigerator's hum, and as usual the papers did the talking. You don't contribute, financially and emotionally. The word emotionally snagged in Linus's throat like an almond not well chewed. The AC hitched for a beat and shut off. The fridge at the end of the hall hummed louder, as if trying to pad the silence. That's not good for the kids. They have no kids. The line dropped like a rehearsed cue for an audience that hadn't arrived, perhaps the notary, or a neighbor stopping by to offer moral support. Harry shifted, eyes sliding away, his finger tapping the table edge in time with the tick-tock on my wrist. Dad, this is the optimal plan. Costs, we'll cover them. Utilities, groceries, subscriptions, already transferred. Linus turned her ring, ran a thumb along the manila edge, and stood a half step inside the kitchen doorway like a latch barring a passage. We don't want to seem heartless, she said, voice sleek, unruffled. Maybe they were staging the polished version of themselves, responsible adults making the hard but necessary choice for a difficult old man. The house heard it. The baseboards creaked as the weather eased. The air conditioner clicked back on with a white chill that shone straight onto my cane and knees. A house does what a house should gather, hold if you let it. The boy who once cried through the night and only slept when I drove loops at 3 a.m. is now a man with a laminated insurance card in his wallet, beside a wife whose bun never once comes undone. He believes in process. In checkboxes, he believes he's found the form that can convert a father into paperwork. "A little water," I said at last, "if you don't mind." No one moved. I went myself, letting that small action lever the room off me. The switch clicked. The fluorescent flared and purred. I reached for a glass and, for a moment, my hand was my father's blue veins raised, honest skin exposed. I filled it but didn't drink. I set it on the maple coaster. I'd turned a small pledge to what bears your weight. The glass touched stone with a soft sound, like a hammer tap. Harry hovered in the doorway. "Dad, don't overthink it. We have to draw boundaries. That's family. Families do 1,000 things. They draw lines, then they erase them, then they move them when the checkbox changes." In my head, the line I didn't speak: "Do those boundaries come with a signature or not?" I thought of a red wagon in the entry of our first house, of the midnight strep throat, of the science fair model that wouldn't stand until I trussed it with fishing line. I thought of Jaina crying quietly in the storage room after the diagnosis, just because she'd broken a glass and feared I'd think her weak. "Boundaries," I said softly. "Good," Linus called from the living room, eyes flicking to her phone. "We'll let you rest a bit, then go over the paperwork together. The notary will be right on time. Don't worry, I already texted him our address." The screen flashed a neat line. Notary confirmed. Our address? That phrase lives in more than one place. It lives on envelopes from the county treasurer. It lives in the file drawer I keep behind the folded blanket at the back of the closet. And it lives in a safe deposit box on Cedar Third Box, second key because I never learned to trust memory over documents. The second hand ticked again. Each stroke scribed another boundary and reminded me who still held the ruler. I carried the glass of water back into the living room and set it on the coaster I'd turned from a slab of old maple felled in last year's storm. A coaster is a small promise to the wood. Don't scar what has carried you. Thock. A neat, exact sound like a tick mark. "Let me be clear," I said, sitting on the armchair, the one our old Labrador used to gnaw whenever thunder rolled. "You want me to sign a medical power of attorney naming you both, so you can decide in my place. You want me to sign a quitclaim deed to erase my name from the papers on your house, and you want me moved into that community before Monday." "Yes, Dad," Harry said. "That's not what he tried to fix it." "It's exactly what it is," I said, not sharp. "If that's what you want, call it by its name." Linus drew a long breath, shoulders rising and falling as if she'd rehearsed it. We want what's best for you and for us. Boundaries, Kane." She tilted her head. "You once taught Harry to be decisive. He's being that. Advice ages too. It either ripens into wisdom or turns into evidence. I had said that true at a kitchen table with a math worksheet between us and a coffee stain spreading beside it. Decisive means picking the right answer when you're afraid of the wrong one. It never meant cutting the very throat that keeps you alive. "Fine," I said, and let the word sit by itself. "Fine, sir?" Harry blinked. He hadn't prepared for this. "I'll read everything," I said. "I don't sign what I haven't read, and I don't read while I'm still thirsty." I lifted the glass and sipped, slow. The water had a metallic edge, a hint of copper pipe older than Linus's patience. Down the hall the fridge rose a register, administrative music. "Leave the file here," I tapped the coffee table. "Then I'll take it to the dining room." Linus flicked a glance at Harry. He nodded and pushed the manila folder forward with 2 fingers, as if it might bite. "We'll be in the kitchen," he said, backing off in half steps like a deer spooked by the wrong twig snap. A paperclip clicked. The kitchen door shut. The hum of current took the house. I opened the folder. Shf! Cold light slid along the paper's edge and stopped square on the signature box. Page 1, quitclaim deed. Page 2, advance medical directive already filled in, boxes checked. The do not resuscitate DNR, line left blank, thank God. Page 3, more surprising than it ought to be. Consent for the community to manage my mail. In the margin, add-ons clipped in. Mail management. Per AU, to debit elder care. Emergency consent. The ink was still fragrant. A faint wintergreen drifted up, as if someone's seal were already on the way. I didn't get angry, not the noisy kind. What came into view was a clean boundary line. On my side, memory, labor, the mortgage payment on the first of every month, the way people know you're steady. On theirs, an efficient plan, a mint-scented notary nodding and leaving a blue stamp on my table. There are many kinds of power. One of the most effective is prepared paperwork. The older I get, the more I understand. When Jaina fell ill, I learned to keep 2 sets of files, one at home, one elsewhere. When Harry bought this house, I learned to read the fine print on the refi and insisted my name stay put, not because I didn't trust him, but because trust and caution are not opposites. I closed the folder and looked up along the stair wall. The third tread still squeaked, has for years. In the frames, time bent back on itself. Harry at 6 bowl cut, gap-toothed grin, holding up a base he swore was 5 pounds. Jaina in a navy dress, sunlight on her hair. And me, younger, a shop cap on, sawdust on my shoulders. I tried to see the line between back then and now. Maybe it was always there. Maybe it slid under our feet while we were busy washing dishes. I stood. My knees complained, then quieted. I took the file not because they asked, but because I needed to feel its weight in my hands. In the hall I stopped, set my palm on the patch of wall paint that never quite matched after the March leak. The plaster was cool. A house is a body and I can still find its pulse. In the back room, the window looks out on the maple stump. I sat at the small desk. Jaina insisted we keep. There'll be a time you need a place to write. 2 drawers. Left bills bundled with a slightly clumsy rubber band. Write a wire-bound blue notebook from back-to-school season, still smelling faintly of plastic. In the notebook, the dates run like fence posts square, true. The first line, in my block hand, after Jenna. I added today's date. Wrote 1 word, Harry. You don't mean anything in this house anymore. I paused. Let the house speak. Let the word lie on the page like a seed on snow. Some things don't die of frost, they learn from it. The phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it ring twice. A text popped up. Hi Kane. This is Troy, your mobile notary, confirming 8 p.m. I'll bring the seal and the ID scanner. See you soon. The second hand snapped once. I looked at the water sitting square on the maple coaster. Paper demands a stamp. Wood demands a promise. I touched the watch face, the hairline scratch still there, and closed the blue notebook. Tonight I'll open the file and open the book. As for the signature, let time answer. Pressed, polite, punctual. I wrote in the notebook, Troy Notary, circled it, and drew a small arrow to the word scanner. People forget that paper has a life of its own. Once it's recorded, it stays, just not always where you think it island. My fingers found the watch clasp. I turned the case over, a hairline scratch from a winter morning 2 decades ago when I hauled bags of rock salt at dawn. My father's 3 initials, faint as a ghost, HJR. He gave me the watch on my 30th and said, Time isn't a river, Kane. It's a shop. You decide what you can mill in it. I didn't understand then. I do now. Sometimes what you mill is a boundary line. I drew a breath the first of the evening, or so it felt. In the closet, behind the folded blanket, the file drawer slid out as smoothly as if it were oiled. Inside, the copies I keep not from paranoia but from discipline, birth certificate, tax returns, the promissory note from when Harry needed earnest money to make the closing, and a deed of trust recording a personal lien in my name. Lawful, modest, humming quietly like the fridge at the end of the hall. I didn't take them out, not tonight. I only let my eyes touch each tab, the way a blind man traces a hymn he already knows by heart. Some people fight with their throats. Long ago, I learned to fight with a calendar. I closed the drawer and went back to the table. The manila folder waited like an exam. I opened it. The paperclip clicked. Fresh ink. I ran each line, dotting the margin wherever a phrase stood too close to the cliff. I hunted for the hidden switch in the language, the place where one can tip over a whole life. I was a foreman for 41 years at the plant. You learn to read a drawing. You learn that a beam that's short an inch doesn't fail on day 1. It fails on day 975. Footsteps in the hall. A light knock. Linus's voice glossy as varnish. Kane, if you want, we can read the provisions together. It's easier with help. I'll be right out, I said. Of course, she answered. In the ceramic bowl, peppermint wrappers whispered thin as a pen nib tapping the signature box. I stood. For the first time since the living room talk, I let myself look in the mirror. The man who looked back had a worked face, eyes the color of Lake Michigan under winter cloud, not helpless. Inventorying. The dining room was staged like a small hearing. File in the center, uncapped pens laid in a straight line, the candy bowl nudged aside, wintergreen faint in the air like a seal's breath. Harry sat straight-backed, hands laced the posture of a man about to present at work. Linus spread a fresh ruled sheet and, in neat hand, wrote at the top, "Next steps." "Shall we begin?" she trilled. I pulled out a chair and set my watch beside the candy bowl like a paperweight. "We'll read together," I said, line by line. 20 minutes later, the first loose screw showed. "This clause," I tapped, "grants durable power of attorney to you both, jointly and severally." Linus's eyes lit. "Meaning, if one of us is busy, the other can act." "Meaning," I said slowly, "either one of you can act alone." Her pen stopped tapping. Harry swallowed. "Why, is that a problem?" "It isn't if two people always agree, but marriage has its rhythm. People get tired." I let the words be as light as air. "This clause makes conflict easier, not harder." "You're accusing us of—" Linus cut herself off. The practiced smile returned. "We can strike it. My father taught me when I was 8. Talk, weather, and people show you their hands. Talk time, and they show you their hearts. Talk paper, and they show you their plan. We read on. Mail management, auto-debit elder care, designated accounts." My mouth went dry at designated because designated doesn't mean my account. It means any account we speak into existence while the notary nods. The source account line was blank, a vacancy full of risk. The candy wrappers rustled again. The second hand clicked right on cue. I slid another page forward. Quitclaim deed relinquishment of ownership. The signature box was a cutout waiting to be filled with ink. Cold light flashed across the line of text. The blue digits from the kitchen bled onto the folder's edge, an invisible countdown clock. Harry leaned back half an inch, then straightened. Linus rotated the candy bowl. Wintergreen thinned through the room. I set my index finger on the shall in the right margin. I didn't speak. I just placed it there. "Go on," I said, steady. "We read it all. Then we talk ink." "Troy's here," Harry said after glancing at his phone, his throat dry. The doorbell rang a crisp chime like a judge's gavel on wood. "Let him in," I said, calm as a Sunday. "The more witnesses, the better." I paused half a beat. I said witnesses, not signatures. "Kane," Linus murmured. A warning wrapped in silk. Troy the notary came in with the scent of wintergreen and printer ink. About 45, a friendly beard, he set a bulging zippered bag on the table. One pull and a green seal appeared like a secret waiting to be pressed. The scanner lit up and beeped. A band of green swept the tabletop like a heartbeat monitor. "Good evening," he said brightly. "We'll do this right and quick. You're Kane, yes?" "Yes." Troy laid out his tools in a neat row. Seal, journal, Idaho scanner. "So who's signing what?" Linus started to speak. I lifted a single knuckle. The room settled by itself. "Before we sign," I said. We read out loud. "Exactly," Troy nodded. "Do it right." We read. The words lifted off the page, entered the air, and grew heavy. Cold light washed green over quitclaim deed in the signature box. Peppermint wrappers rustled in the ceramic bowl as Linus nudged it, a thin sound like a pen tip touching the signature line. At the quitclaim, Harry cleared his throat. Dad. Tonight there will be no words of mine on this document, I said, each beat clear. Linus jolted. Her chair scraped a half-inch. Why? Because I'm not moving out on Monday. Because you scheduled a notarization before a conversation. Because I poured the footings of this house with Harry when he was still quick and full of hope. Because your plan is very tidy but not kind. Because I have read I tapped the margin. And because meaning is not a switch you get to flip on me. The scanner gave another timekeeping beep and went quiet. Troy stood still. Decency told him not to move. Dad, Harry lowered his voice. Careful, we're just trying to help. I know, and help comes in many forms. Tonight it looks like this: 3 things. Brief. The file stays here. No stamp. You two will think hard about the word designated and how it would feel if someone you love designated your life without asking. And I will sleep in my room this week. Linus shot to her feet. This is exactly the kind of manipulation. It's a boundary, I said, flat. The lines families draw. Yes, and tonight there's a record. Witnesses attest to an event. They do not create consent. Troy coughed softly, zipped the bag back up, turned the seal face in. I can reschedule. No charge. Happens all the time. Thank you, I said. Please put your number on that ruled sheet, he wrote. A new line on paper, another seed. Linus left the room. The fridge door opened, then closed. Ice clicked in a glass just as I repeated, witnesses, not signatures. Harry stared at the quitclaim as if it had betrayed him. I don't want a war, he said. Neither do I. I want respect. It's cheaper. We went quiet. 2 men in a dining room, the light older than his marriage, shoulders canted toward a table that had been my father's before it was mine. My watch ticked beside the peppermint bowl. Dad, he said softly, you make it hard to know how to take care of you. You take care of me by not taking from me, by asking before deciding, by remembering that meaning isn't measured in rent, noise, or how fast I climb the stairs. He looked at his hands, good hands, that once laid a floor, that once held Jaina's hand as she was dying, when he was 27 and afraid. Hands don't make themselves cruel. They obey orders passed down by fear. All right, he said hoarse. We'll pause. Good, I nodded. A pause that's adulthood. Troy slipped out. The seal never touched ink. The front door clicked the sound of a session, ending without approval. No one won. But the papers went unsigned, and the boundary was drawn. I picked up the watch and fastened it back on my wrist. I folded the file. We'll talk tomorrow. I'm going to bed. Hugging the manila folder to my chest, I walked past the row of frames up the stairs. The third step groaned like a signature on the record. A shadow slid across the map of Lake Michigan. The glass trembled faintly. A stripe of hallway light poured down the spine of the folder, then went out. Back in my room, I set the folder on the desk, pulled the blue-covered notebook on top of it, then turned the watch face down on the stack like a paperweight from another century. I set it face down so time would stop looking at me. Click. The switch. Darkness drew the room into one held breath. Outside the window, sodium light poured a dull blade along the desk's edge. The neighbor's sprinkler ticked and tapped, counting off beat against my watch. I sat on the edge of the bed and let silence answer for the evening's rehearsal. Then I did a small thing, the kind of thing people skip over, until the end when they realize the story's hinge was there all along. I slid open the drawer. Metal sang a low note. A thick paper envelope slid out. The upper left was embossed with the firm's name, the ink pale but firm to the touch. Commonwealth title. Paste and old paper breathed up, shouldering out the smell of wood. The folder's edge pressed my finger. Paper has edges too. I slipped the envelope beneath the stack. Slow, dead center. It seated like a wedge. Still, tight. A latch set in the dark. Outside, the sprinkler kept its own count. In here, the second hand on my wrist kept mine. Tomorrow, the past will knock. 3 times. I open. The night after they tried to erase me, I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark and listened to the house breathe as if it were still on my side. The refrigerator hummed at the end of the hall. Somewhere, a pipe changed voice and knocked twice, cold. Every sound felt like an ally, still sticking around when my own blood had turned its back. I counted my breaths in for 4, out for 4. The house counted with me. Dawn scratched a thin line along the edge of the curtain. In that ashy gray, memory opened the door like an uninvited guest. Harry at 5 stood at the end of the gravel drive, a too big baseball glove on his hand. The glove billowed like a flag. Again, Dad. Again. My back ached then. Machine grease still settled in the creases of my palms, yet I always gave him, again. Today, they brought a manila folder to erase for good. Back then, he begged for again. Now he wants erase. Morning. I buttoned a clean shirt. The cane ticked a beat on the floor. Linus looked up, a polished smile that never reached her eyes. Cold perfume and fresh nail polish. "Good morning, Kane," she chirped, bright as a store greeter. Harry's spoon hovered over his cereal bowl, his eyes heavy with what he wouldn't say. The spoon fell and touched the bowl ting. I poured my own coffee. Steam rose and blurred the edge of the newspaper. We ate like strangers who had forgotten we shared blood. I set the cup down, ran a finger along the rim, and said, as if in passing, "I still hold the lien from when you bought this house." Harry blinked. Linus's smile slipped. "Which lien?" she asked too fast. "The lien from the down payment," I said. "You didn't have enough saved. I put up 45% to make sure you got the loan. Paper doesn't age like people. It stays fresh." Harry shifted in his chair. Linus pressed her lips together. Silence said the rest. They had forgotten the seed I planted years ago. The ground had not. After we ate, I went out back. The grass was wet with dew. The air had a knife's edge, and the maple stump the storm took last year stood like a headstone. I sat on the bench and closed my eyes. In the wind I could see Jenna, the hem of her robe lifting, her finger holding a page, her voice soft but steady. "Kane, teach Harry patience. He wants everything too fast." "They're young," I used to laugh. "Let him run." "There will come a day he forgets to stop," she said. "That's when he'll need you most." I whispered into the empty yard. "You were right, Jaina. He forgot. But he'll learn. Not by shouting, by truth." Back inside, I caught Linus on the phone, polite and sharp as a knife. "Yes, Friday is fine. No, he hasn't signed, but he'll be ready." Seeing me, her eyes widened. "Just calling Dominic," she stammered when I asked about the truck. I didn't need the rest. One slip was enough. I went to my room, opened the blue notebook marked after Jenna, and added today's entry. "They've set Friday. They think I'll sign. They don't know about the lien. They don't know what patience looks like when it's honed." I underlined patience twice, closed the book, went to do what mattered. At the bank, the teller recognized me. "Mr. Kane, you always keep things so tidy." "Always," I said. I asked her to confirm the lien file, update my mailing address, and print the current ownership record. The stamp thumped paper, drank ink. Everything intact. My name hadn't shifted a letter. Walking out, it felt like Jenna sliding the last puzzle piece into place. That lien was the piece hidden but irreplaceable. On the way home, Sunny waved me over at the fence. She glanced left, glanced right, then whispered, "Kane, I heard Linus say something about listing your house. Is it true listing?" The word was colder than care. Listing isn't about care. It's about profit. I thanked her. Another piece clicked in. Evening. We sat at the table. Harry pushed food around. Linus forced small talk about weather and errands. I let them, then said just one thing in 3 beats. "Everything here hears. So do the neighbors. Careful." Linus dropped her fork clack. Harry looked at me and turned away. That was enough. They knew I knew, but not how much I'd stowed away. Late. In my room, I set the manila folder on the desk, laid the blue notebook on top, and listened to the watch crawl toward midnight. The house creaked, sighed, whispered as if it remembered who built it. "They hold the pen," I murmured. "But the tabletop under that pen is wood," I plained. I killed the light, slid open the drawer, metal sang a low note, and pulled out the thick Commonwealth title envelope, its corner embossed. I wedged it beneath their paperwork. Still. Tight. A wedge in deep water. The next morning began with Harry's footsteps overhead. Slow. Heavy. The boards hissed as if sharing the load. I stared at the ceiling. Hairline cracks mapped circuits. The house blinked to his rhythm. Jenna used to say, "You can think circles around anyone if you stay quiet long enough." Maybe. Or maybe quiet just gives memory room. When he failed his driver's test the first time, he panicked, ashamed, wanted to skip school. I pulled him into the garage, handed him a soda. Failure only hurts when you hide it. Look it in the eye and its fangs fall out. He didn't like it, but the next week he retook it and passed. Years later he sat in this same house, trying to hide me like a failure he couldn't face. I almost laughed. Almost. I stood, buttoned up, slid the notebook into my inside pocket, a shield. In the kitchen, Linus sat with tea, flipping a glossy magazine. "Good morning, Kane," she said too easily. I nodded, poured coffee, sat across from her. Harry came in after, tie askew, chin freshly shaved. He looked at me as if waiting for an explosion that never came. I let him wait. Silence teaches faster. "Dad," he said, worrying his phone, "we should probably move the notarization to the weekend. Last night wasn't effective." "Effective, huh?" I rolled the word on my tongue. Nice description. Linus shot him a quick look, spouses keeping to the same page. "We just want everything squared away, Kane, for everyone's peace of mind." "Peace of mind for whom?" I asked, sipping. No one answered. I let them sit in the quiet until my cup was empty, then carried it to the sink. Metal touched stone cold. "I've got a few errands," I said. They didn't ask what first mistake. I walked into town, Kane ticking, not because I needed it, because I wanted to look like I did. They expected someone fading, a burden. When people think you're too old to bother with, you hear a lot. The corner bakery, brown butter in the air, the oven clicked. Two men talked house prices near the highway. At the post office, a clerk tilted her head and asked if I was finally moving into Cedar Haven, the very community Linus had mentioned. I smiled thinly. Not yet, not yet. The rumor had already gone to work. My family had taken the first step in rewriting my story. They just didn't know I had already sharpened the pencil. By mid-morning I was at my brother Roman's law office. The sign out front was sun-faded but still legible. Kane and Associates, attorneys at law. The paint was peeling right at Associates. The screws rusted. Inside, the warm smell of printer ink, the rasp of file folders. The shredder droned at a steady pitch. The wall clock knocked talk like nails being driven. "Kane, well, this is a surprise. What brings you here?" Roman sprang up, surprise plain in his eyes. "Today I need attorney Roman, not my kid brother," I said, setting the cane lightly beside the chair. "And this stays between us." His smile thinned into something sober. "Of course." I laid out everything, the notary, the quitclaim deed, the community they'd pre-selected, the Friday appointment, the whispers about listing the house. Roman listened, fountain pen poised over a yellow legal pad. When I finished, he leaned back and exhaled. "Kane, they don't know what they're walking into. If the lien's still valid and your name's still on the deed, they can't do anything without you. The lock is in your hand." I nodded slowly. "I know, but knowing isn't enough. I want them to feel it. Trust isn't a signature wrung dry. It's something deposited over time. If they've forgotten, they can relearn it." Roman tapped his pen. "We do 3 things. You barely lift a finger. A letter reminding them the lien is in force. A flag at the bank. If needed, we freeze transactions. They'll catch on fast." "Good. Don't send it yet. Wait until they think they've won." A glint of respect in his eyes. "You're always patient." "Patience isn't waiting," I almost smiled. "It's quiet sharpening." We shook our grip, clicked shut like a binder clip, neat, firm. Walking out, I thought of Jenna. She used to say, "Kane, you don't raise your voice, you raise the stakes." I hadn't fully grasped it then. Sometimes the quiet man at the table is the one writing the rules. Through the front door, I caught Harry and Linus whispering. Linus swallowed half a sentence. Harry smoothed a magazine that never had a crease. I passed by, Kane steady, and went to my room. At the desk I opened the notebook. Met Roman. He knows everything. Wait. They think silence means surrender. They don't know silence can be a strategy. That evening Linus tapped lightly and held a casserole dish. The cheese had set. The oil gone cool. The foil pan was dented at one corner. I made too much tonight. Thought you might like some. I took it, set it down without lifting the lid. Guilt cooking rarely sits well. After dinner the house went quiet. Harry slipped to the garage. Linus glued herself to her phone. I walked the hall, slow family photos. Harry at 10 hugging the model plane. Jaina laughing at something outside the frame. Me with a fishing rod. The boy beside me, proud. I touched a frame. It used to be mine, I whispered. Back in my room, a plain envelope peeked under the door. Inside, Cedar Haven Community Welcome Packet. Someone had slid it in like a hotel brochure, as if my life had been pre-booked. I folded it once, twice, and tucked it at the back of the notebook. Evidence, not surrender. Later, through a wall thin as blotting paper, Linus's voice seeped. Yes, Friday is fine. He'll sign. Don't worry, too tired to fight. I smiled in the dark. They think fatigue equals defeat. They don't understand quiet equals position. Before sleep, I set the Commonwealth title envelope beside their folder. 2 stacks, side by side. Theirs to erase me, mine to remind them I cannot be erased. The contrast was almost poetry. The next morning the air had the hush before storm feel. I was up before dawn, the watch face cool on my wrist. What woke me now wasn't fear, it was purpose. I brewed coffee slow, listened to the drip into the filter, remembered the factory's rhythms. Jenna used to tease that I measured life by machines. Today, patience was the machine I needed most. Harry came down, hair still wet. Morning, Dad. Morning, Harry. His shoulders tightened a notch. He ate fast. Before leaving, he said, "Let's talk about arrangements tonight." Arrangements heavy as a coffin lid. I only nodded. Linus stepped onto the back porch, dressed to go nowhere important. "Kane, you should put on a sweater. It's cold." "I've known colder," I said without moving. She tilted her head, testing for meaning, then turned away. Right then I decided on the first real move, not head-on, but around the side, sowing seed. I left late morning, walking into town. The bakery first. Ruby greeted me warmly. "Haven't seen you in a while. How's Harry treating you?" "Like a guest in his own house," I said. Ruby frowned. I let it hang, bought a rye loaf, moved on. Seeds don't need sermons, only the right ear. Next, the hardware store. Owen looked up. "Kane, need nails again?" "Number 220 grit sandpaper for the table. Want to ease a few edges." He chuckled. "Always fixing something. Better to sand wood than fix a family," I said lightly. His eyes flashed with curiosity. Another seed. Near noon I took a table at the cafe where Roman usually eats. He came in, warm as ever. "Kane, 2 days in a row you must be starting to like me. You're still the talker." We ordered sandwiches. I leaned in, lowered my voice. "Linus and Harry have already called their guy. Friday. They think I'll sign before then." Roman's jaw set. "Will you?" "Number, but right now I want them to believe I might." He nodded. "Got it. So we let them build a house of cards. When the wind comes," I said, "you don't need to lift a finger." On the way back, Sonny leaned over the fence and whispered, "Kane, I heard they called Cedar Haven. True? People will talk. Let them. Truth finds the light." At home, Linus paced the kitchen, phone to ear. Seeing me, she lowered her voice, but not enough. "Yes, Friday. Paperwork will be ready. He's stubborn, but he'll soften." Then louder, to cover. "Oh, hi, Kane. I'm confirming with the plumber." "Plumbers don't work Fridays," I said mildly as I passed. Her face drained. Evening, Harry came back, worn. We ate in quiet. I opened. "You're busy." He froze. "You mean the calls? The plan? Friday?" "The best for everyone," he said stiffly. "Don't make it harder." "Harder for whom?" I looked straight at him. He didn't answer. He pushed back his chair and left. Linus followed, whispering fast. Late, I wrote in the notebook. Talked to neighbors. Seeds sown. They've begun to whisper. Linus restless. Harry defensive. Friday hangs. They don't feel the ground shifting. Wind picked up. The house creaked. A church bell drifted from far off. I thought of Jenna, of Sundays, of how she believed time was a circle. I whispered, "The circle's turning, Jenna. They don't see it, but it's begun." The morning after sewing, I woke with a weight close to resolve. At my age, getting out of bed comes with pain. That morning, the pain felt like armor. I dressed slow, buttoned a Pendleton shirt, slipped the notebook into my pocket, and stood in front of Jaina's photo. Her eyes seemed to ask, "What will you do today, Kane?" I answered by taking up the cane and stepping out before Harry or Linus could funnel me into a rehearsed scene. Autumn air nipped my lungs. I welcomed it. I walked east through town, past the new for sale signs. That's when I understood. That's how they saw me. A house with equity. It didn't hurt, it clarified. I needed more than papers and memory. I needed a living ally. Roman had the law covered, but blood only goes so far. A name rose as naturally as breath. Basil Lawson. Basil and I worked 42 years at the plant. His hands could measure steel within a millimeter, and his loyalty never wavered, even when the foreman barked. Years ago, when his boy had a scrape with the law, I went to the union rep and stood up for the kid. Basil's the kind who repays every debt twice over. It was true then, and I trust it's still true now. The VFW hall flickered with tired fluorescent lights. The smell of overboiled coffee mingled with furniture polish older than half the men at the bar. The jukebox sat mute. The television in the corner spilled white subtitles like a distant bell. The wall clock struck thunk, thunk, like nails driven into time. Basil leaned back in his chair, hat pulled low, sipping black coffee. When he saw me, he curled his lip into a half smile. "Kane, well, I'll be damned. Been a while. Sit. I lowered myself down. The old floorboards groaned softly. We looked at each other, two relics still functioning from the same era. "Basil," I said quietly, "I need a favor." The smile faded. The grave look of a man who knows favors between old friends are never small. "That's heavy. What do you need?" Piece by piece, I laid it out, tightening like gears locking into place. Harry's words, Linus's manila folder, the notary, the Friday meeting, the Cedar Haven papers, the lien, the whispers running through town. Basil listened in silence. His calloused knuckles gripped the mug handle, the thin scar across the back of his hand turning pale. "Lord, Kane, your boy," he muttered, shaking his head. "My son." I nodded. "What do you need?" "No fists, no noise. I need eyes, ears, maybe a hand or two at the right moment. They paint me as weak. They forget I still have roots." Basil leaned in. "You have me. Years back you stood up for my kid. That debt, I'll repay it double." We shook hands. The grip sealed like a cold weld, not glittering, but holding the frame. We talked for an hour. Basil mentioned his cousin in the county clerk's office where deeds and titles moved like currency. "She'll tip you off if anyone files papers under your name. It won't hit the record." "Good. My nephew's in real estate. If Linus tries to float a sale, he'll hear. Rumors travel fast. One call, one copy, one red flag in the system." That was enough. Leaving the VFW, autumn wind chased leaves, the smell of warm asphalt in the air. My lungs felt lighter. I wasn't walking alone anymore. Back home, Linus was pressed against the kitchen phone. When she saw me, she glanced over her shoulder, then turned away. "Yes, Friday. He's stubborn, but we'll convince him, I promise." She froze, then shifted tone. No, I'm talking to the plumber." "The plumber too?" I hung up my coat, asked flatly. The faucet gleamed. The water meter hadn't moved. But words were flowing. "Yes, he's been hard to reach lately," she said, her voice thin as a paper edge. I passed by, cane steady, into the living room. Harry looked up from his phone, guilt flashed, then died like a blown fuse. "Dad, we just want what's best for Em." "For who?" I cut him off. I didn't wait for an answer. In my room I opened the ledger, met Basil, formed an alliance, the handshake stronger than ink, walls have ears. I slid the ledger beneath the file stack. Afternoon stretched long across the floorboards. I sat on the porch, listening to cicadas drone, crickets chirp, the laughter of children down the street. Outwardly, normal. Inwardly, storm clouds gathered. I wasn't alone anymore. After dinner, Harry tried again. I was rinsing a glass, water threading into the cold steel sink. "Dad, we need to finalize. Linus has worked hard. You're making everything." He swallowed the harder word. I dried the glass, set it on the rack, and looked at him. "Remember when you failed your first driving test? You came home wanting to bury it. I told you, failure only hurts when you hide it. Face it, and the teeth fall out. Next week you tested again, you passed. Remember?" He frowned. "I guess I do." "Then remember this. Erasing a father won't erase the shame. It carves it deeper. The mirror will remember for you." His face darkened. "You're twisting everything." "No," I said evenly. "I'm untangling it." He stormed off, muttering. Linus followed, whispering sharp on the stairs. The distance between their steps said enough. The house fell quiet. I placed the watch on the green ledger, the hands pressing the spine like an invisible seal. I thought of Jenna, of how she believed every small act held meaning. "People think storms only destroy," she often said. "Sometimes storms reveal which trees have roots deep enough to stand." I smiled in the dark. The storm was coming. I had roots. And now I had Basil, a debt paid in silent efficiency, standing with me as the wind began to rise. When I closed my eyes, I heard again the handshake across the table, firm, steady, carrying me into the next day. The kitchen still smelled of cold metal. The clock struck its beat like a hammer testing steel. That morning I understood. I was not only the anvil, I was also the hammer. I opened the green-bound ledger. Last night's line, met Basil, formed alliance, handshake stronger than ink. My finger traced the words the way a craftsman studies the grain before carving. The file drawer slid out. The paper's edge grazed my skin, a thin burn reminding me. Paper also knows how to draw blood. Handwritten tabs neatly marked, the scent of manila and old ink. I slid the deed, the lien, and Jenna's will copy into a leather case. Not for show, for protection. Coat on, lock fastened, cane in hand. Linus stood at the counter, phone to her cheek, stirring sugar. She looked me over from head to toe. "Going out, Kane? Errands?" "Errands." So, her smile, thin as a paper edge, faltered for half a beat. My silence carried weight. I walked into town, the rhythm of the cane like camouflage, giving weakness permission to pass. First stop, Roman's office. Vertical blinds striped shadows across his face. A diploma hung a degree off. The shredder hummed in the corner. "You look like a man about to file suit," Roman said, closing the door, eyes on the leather case. "Not yet, but keep these quietly." He opened the case. The clip snapped. A faint blue seal pressed the back of a page. Roman nodded slowly, lawyer's voice steady. "This lien is the lock. Anyone pushing through will break their hand. Jenna's will names you executor. Whoever tries to undo that will crawl through broken glass. Keep it out of sight. Copies are fine as long as it's silent." We built scenarios, each sentence short as a rivet. If Linus and Harry sneak a filing, to notify plus flag at the clerk's office. Force a renotarization? 2. Shift the date. Void coerced signatures. Touch the joint account I foolishly let her manage after Jaina passed, to freeze it. Fast, clean, no noise. Roman tapped his pen twice, closed. "You're not retaliating, you're restoring balance." Leaving his office, I felt as steady as the day I shut down a faulty machine on the floor. Back then lives depended on me, now dignity did. Catching up what others let slip. Post office. A stamp thudded onto a letter nearby. The clerk joked, "Want your mail forwarded straight to Cedar Haven?" Her smile fell, seeing my face. "Not today. Keep it here. If anyone asks about a forwarding address, call me first." "Of course." A seed planted. Back home. Linus flipped papers too quickly, her nail denting the edge of a folder. She shoved it into the stack, thin smile. Busy day for you. Better than useless. The wall clock ticked clear as brass. Her politeness did not. Evening. Harry came home late, tie loose, eyes red. He set silence on the table like a heavy object. Dad, we have to move forward. Linus is stretched thin. So am I. We don't mean to hurt you, but we can't live like this forever. Like this means what? No order, no plan. There is a plan. I set my fork down, just not yours. He blinked. I didn't explain. Silence was a plan too. Night. I spread papers like weapons. Deed, lien, will. Empires don't fall from shouting. They buckle under stamps and lines. I wrote in the ledger. Roman holds originals. Seed planted at post office. Linus restless. Harry cracked. Paper stronger than fists. Next morning, Basil called. Kane, my cousin at the clerk's, says Linus is sniffing around for transfer dates. She doesn't know about your lien. Good. Let her think the ground is firm. My nephew in real estate also heard. They're asking about listing speed. They'll run into the wall themselves, I said. Basil chuckled low, then turned serious. You're not alone. I know. Afternoon, Linus changed her tune. She knocked, carrying a tray of tea. Chamomile, to ease tension. I looked at the steaming cup. You drink it. Her smile lost its lips. She set the tray down, left. Late night, Harry stood in the doorway like a boy about to confess. Dad, why do you fight us? I don't fight. I remember. Remember what? This house was built on my back. Trust isn't paper. Meaning isn't something you erase with a line. He swallowed hard. We just thought it would make things easier. Easier for who? No answer. He turned away. I pulled the Commonwealth title envelope, placed it beside the leather case. The clock ticked, heartbeat steady. I thought of Jaina, of Roman, of Basil, of the seeds already taking root across town. They think they've cornered me, I whispered. They don't see I already set the hinge. The door will swing my way. No gun, no fists. Just the right papers, the right allies, and patience. The storm is near, and when it breaks, the ones who tremble will not be me. The leather of his shoes hissed softly against the polished wood steps. The glow of the phone screen flared cold like a small knife at the foot of the stairs. 3 words fell like hammer blows. Loan. Refi. Denied. I sat at the table, a cup of coffee cooling in front of me, pretending to read the paper. Harry's jaw clenched, cords rising along his neck. His thumb scraped the phone case edge, leaving a white mark like a cut. Linus hovered nearby, lips pressed into a thin line, politeness with a blade. He hung up. Silence swelled like a sponge, soaking all the air from the kitchen. Everything all right? I asked softly, eyes on the page. Nothing, he shot back too quickly. Nothing, is it? I folded the paper, better that than slicing my hand on Linus's paper-thin smile. His eyes flicked toward me, then away. Linus placed a hand on his, whispered something short. I didn't need to hear. The bank. The lien. Roman had kept quiet all this time, had slid the bolt shut. That click echoed through the line. Refinancing denied, sale refused. The ground beneath them wasn't as solid as they thought. The whole day dragged beneath restless silence. Harry left late for work, muttering about meetings. Linus paced with the phone across the tile until a path was worn in the grout. I let time tighten. Patience is also a kind of pressure. By afternoon, Harry didn't dodge the living room as usual. He came straight into my study. He stopped at the threshold, arms folded, eyes darting from my cane to the ledger on the desk. Dad, he said finally, we need to talk. We're already talking, Harry. I looked up slowly. You're just not listening. The bank says there's a lien in your name, from years back. Why didn't you tell me? Because you never asked. He stepped in, voice rising. You've blocked us from moving forward. Do you even realize what you've done? I stood, leaning on the cane, meeting his eyes. I'm protecting my share. Your mother's share. The part you've forgotten. Linus appeared behind him, face hard as steel. Kane, this isn't fair. We're trying to arrange proper care for you, and you're sabotaging it. Care? I nearly laughed. Scheduling notaries behind my back, sliding Cedar Haven brochures under my door, that isn't care, that's convenience. Quote, Harry turned his face aside, shame or anger, hard to tell. Linus held her stare. You can't stay here forever. One way or another, this house will be ours. That lien won't hold for long. I tapped the cane once, slow and deliberate, against the floor. Long enough. They turned away. Angry whispers climbed the stairs. Embarrassment. Neighbors. Stupid lien. I sat back down, opened the ledger, wrote, First crack revealed. They've heard the latch click. Next morning, I went to the grocery store. In the canned aisle, 2 neighbors whispered. They went silent when I passed, but I had already caught my name. Kane's boy tried to sell the house, one murmured. Bank shut it down, the other sighed. Shameful. Seeds once planted don't need a gardener, rumors find their own rain. At the counter, Ruby shook her head, voice gentle. Family. Sometimes they forget who helped them stand. On the walk home, I stopped at Basil's porch. He sat with his pipe, smoke curling like a signal. Heard the bank clip their wings, he chuckled. First strike, I said. Now they'll scramble, he nodded. When the ground shifts, people show their true faces. He was right. That night, those true faces surfaced. Harry paced. Linus cornered him. From downstairs, the same 3 words crawled upward. Embarrassment, neighbors, lien. Then Harry's voice broke. What do you want me to do, Linus? He's my father. The silence after was sharper than any shout. When Linus answered, her voice was low and cold. Not much longer. They thought they were pushing me out. They didn't know they were pushing themselves into a corner. Late at night, I called Roman. They know about the lien now. Good, he said. Let them chew on it. They'll push back harder. Then we hold tighter. I set the phone down, pulled out Jenna's old cloth-bound carpenter's notebook, the one she used to tuck notes into. The paper crackled faintly, like old bones. Inside the cover, her pencil scrawl was still warm. The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone, I whispered. See, Jaina? They try to erase me. But I'm the one keeping this house upright. The next day, Linus tried another tack. She came to my door with a smile that never reached her eyes. Kane, maybe we rushed. Perhaps we can arrange something more comfortable? What you want isn't comfort, Linus. I looked at her squarely. It's control. Her smile faltered. Why do you always assume the worst? Because you've shown me the worst. Again and again. She withdrew, unease trailing her like a shadow. That evening, Harry came alone. Saturday on the edge of the chair, rubbing his hands. Dad! I didn't know about the notary until Linus had it lined up. I swear. I just didn't stop it. That's on me. I looked at him a long time. For a moment, I saw the boy waving at me in oversized gloves from the gravel drive. Harry, I said quietly, you've forgotten the stance of loyalty. And once a man forgets that, it's hard to remember. I don't know what to do. Then do nothing, I answered softly. Sometimes that's the wisest choice. He left without another word. That night, I placed the Commonwealth title envelope beside the ledger. My watch ticked steady heartbeat true. I wrote the final line. The first crack has appeared. Tomorrow, pressure rises. And I knew the gauge was falling. I was not. The morning after Harry's voice cracked on the line with the bank, the air in the house shifted weight. It pressed toward the kitchen where they stood like a damp blanket, each heel of Linus stapled into the wood. The paper in Harry's hand rasped like sandpaper. The lock's click was far too loud for an ordinary morning. Fear had made the house noisier. Pressure was doing its work. I poured my own coffee, sat at the table. The bitterness curled upward, my hand raised as if signaling smoke from a hill. Harry came down with his tie half-tied, dark circles under his eyes. His thumb pressed the phone case edge, leaving a white mark like a cut. He muttered a greeting without looking at me. Linus followed right behind, polished as ever, phone already to her ear. 2 words shot down the hallway like thin blades. Liquidation. Timeline. You don't understand, Dad. Harry lowered his voice, finally speaking. The lien. It binds. Everything. I understand. I met his eyes. I chose, and I signed long ago for precaution. He squinted, said nothing, snatched his briefcase. Linus trailed him close. The door closed behind them with the sound of a hammer hitting an empty drum. I sat a long while, staring at the maple coaster beneath my cup. Years ago, I had turned it from a broken branch, sanding it smooth while Jenna read on the porch. She laughed. You even give broken things a new job. That line held the cup steady this morning. Stepping out into the cool air, I saw Matthew across the street waving. Dirt still under his nails. Men like that rarely lie. He lowered his voice, though no one was near. Kane, I heard Harry at the hardware store. He was angry. Said, my father made this impossible. He won't let go. Folks are talking. Some say Harry's pushing you out. Others say you're holding him hostage. I thought you should know. Thank you, Matthew, I nodded. Talking is the strongest trade in this town. Half a block later my phone buzzed. Basil. His voice low, steady. Kane, my cousin at the clerk's, said Linus tried to request a copy of the deed. Without you, she couldn't get access. She stormed out. Word is spreading. Good, I said. Let them chase shadows. That afternoon, Linus cornered me in the kitchen, her smile thin as a paper edge. Kane, the neighbors seemed concerned. At the bakery, Ruby asked if everything was all right. Did you say something? I said the truth, Linus. I stirred sugar slowly, careful not to cut myself. What people do with it, that's theirs. You're making us into villains. I'm not making anyone. The mirror does its job. She spun on her heel, the strike of it on the floor like a small gunshot. At dusk, Harry stood in my doorway. Between us only the length of a cane, half an arm, a whole lifetime. Dad, this is out of hand. Everyone's talking. Linus is furious. You have to stop. Stop what? Stop turning us into enemies. You're not an enemy because of what I say, Harry. My voice calm. You're an enemy because of what you do. He froze. For a flash, I saw the boy who once shattered a neighbor's window. Back then, he had run to me. I told him, the only fix is to knock on their door yourself. Admit it. Pay it back. Back then, he knew how to knock. Today, he is locking it. That night I wrote in the ledger. Neighbors whisper. Matthew, the neutral, is swaying. Clerk confirms Linus panicked. Harry cracked. They no longer control the story. The next day, whispers became direct words. At the post office, 2 women approached. Kane, is it true your son is trying to sell the house out from under you? Their voices carried no malice. They carried concern. I neither confirmed nor denied. Sons forget, I said. Sometimes a father still remembers. They nodded, eyes softening, and walked on. In a small town, being watched is sometimes worse than being judged. By afternoon, Matthew came again to my steps. His words were short, firm. If you need a witness about the lien, about the house, I'll stand for you. People believe me. I don't talk much. I'm grateful, Matthew. I may take you up on that. Night fell. I opened the case, laid out the papers like a set of troops, each seal an arrow. The clock ticked time on my side. I wrote, Matthew has crossed over. The whole town is watching. Rumors are no longer seated by me. They live on their own. Linus and Harry think they control the house. The house has chosen its own witness. I closed the ledger, switched off the light. The gauge dropped. The wind turned. It no longer blew against me. Morning reached its climax, draping the house in gray. It did not only cover the walls, it seeped like mist into the joints, making even breathing heavy. The house shrank by a notch, beams creaking as if strapping down before strain. I rose before dawn, sat on the edge of the bed. The watch on my wrist ticked softly. Tick, tock, the green-bound ledger lay open before me. I wrote one line. Today something will break. Not me. I shut the ledger, slipped it into my coat. I listened to the silence of a house about to be turned inside out. Downstairs. The air shifted weight, pressing toward them like a damp blanket. In Linus's hand, the phone was quick, her voice sharp, brittle, pitched just enough to cut across the hall. Yes, I know, but the lien can't last forever. He's old, he'll give in. He has to. Just keep the buyer on hold a little longer. The words, give in, and keep the buyer slid past like razor blades. Seeing me at the foot of the stairs, she hung up, smile snapping too fast. Morning, Kane. Coffee's on the counter. Thanks. I poured a cup. Her perfume brushed against the metallic taste of fear, leaving a bitter aftertaste at the back of my throat. Harry came down right after. Ty pulled too tight a small noose, each swallow tightening another notch. Dark rings under his eyes. He muttered, mourning, fiddling with his phone as though waiting for a miracle to erase yesterday's call, then hovered at the doorway, shifting his weight as if awaiting Linus's permission to speak. Something wrong, son? I asked quietly. He startled, mouth opening, then closing. At last, the bank called back. They won't move forward, not while the lien's there. Tick, tock. My words fell neatly between two beats, like a small hammer strike. Paper is more patient than people. I taught you that. He flinched slightly. Linus cut in, her voice sharp. Kane, enough. You're humiliating us. Neighbors gossip. The bank treats us like fools, all because you won't sign one piece of paper. I set the cup down gently. One piece of paper built this house. One piece of paper held it when the down payment fell short. And one piece of paper is keeping me here. Her face flushed, then paled, then grayed. Before she could snap back, the doorbell hammered dry. Judgment entered, uninvited. Harry opened it. On the threshold stood Basil, sturdy as the oak he once cut for porch beams. Beside him, Matthew, hat in hand, soil still under his nails. Behind them, a man in a gray suit from the bank, clutching a folder like the black box of a free-fall crash. Morning, Basil said, stepping in without waiting. We should sit. Linus stiffened. What is this? Matthew spoke softly, but the words carried weight. Truth, Linus. The town deserves to know. So does the bank. Kane's right to this house is more than you admit. The banker opened his file, tapped the pen once, voice flat as text. Mr. Kane's lien is valid and enforceable. Until resolved, all sale or refinancing is halted. Legally, the property cannot transfer without his signature, and according to record, he has no intent of providing that signature. Something snapped in Harry, his shoulders dropped like an old spring losing tension. Linus went pale, then red. You barge in here just to shame us? I didn't invite them. I leaned on my cane. Truth knows its own way through a door. The floor gave a single thud, like a nod. Harry looked at me. In his eyes, fear and recognition. Dad, his voice cracked. I raised a hand lightly. Don't. Yesterday you said I had no meaning in this house. Seems the house itself disagrees. Linus lashed at him instead. This is your fault, Harry. You said it would be simple. You said he'd yield, and now everyone's laughing at us. Her words ricocheted down the hall, sharp, venomous. Basil stepped forward, voice low but firm. Enough. Kane doesn't need to shout. He has law. He has the town. He has us. The room fell still. Only the clock remained, each beat like an invisible blue stamp pressed onto the table, indelible. Linus froze, eyes pinned on me. Harry slumped into a chair, face buried in his hands. I turned to the banker. Thank you for clarifying. He nodded. I'll update the record. Unless Mr. Kane chooses otherwise, there will be no progress. He left, his words hanging heavy in the air. Matthew lifted his hat. Kane, if you need a witness, I'll stand by you. I don't talk much. People believe me. He closed the door softly behind him. Basil lingered a beat, looked at me, nodded, the echo of a handshake, then followed. Silence shrieked. I spoke last. This house is not just wood and nails. It is history. It is meaning. Meaning doesn't wait for a signature to exist. It is living evidence. And today, That evidence stood with me. I lifted the cane, walked past them, up the stairs slow and steady. Gray light slashed the landing. I turned back so they saw who was still standing. Harry raised his head, eyes wet. Linus clenched her fists, face stone. I left them in the wreckage of their own making, returned to my room, spread the papers like an army, each stamp an arrow. I wrote in the ledger, "Today the storm broke." Harry collapsed. Linus raged. The house held firm. I remain. The long wait eased. Outside, gray clouds parted. A blade of sun signed its name on the maple trunk. Jaina would have called it a sign. I closed the ledger, set the watch on top, whispered, "The day has fallen. Not on me. Thank you for walking with me through creaking stairs, blue ink seals, and the fine lines of a home." If this story touched you, please like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next chapter. Leave a comment. Whose side are you on? And what moment will you never forget? And if you find it worthy, share it with someone who needs proof that papers, allies, and patience still hold power. To hear the rest of this journey, click on the playlist now showing.